Imagine you are standing in the checkout lane of like a massive retail store. You've got your cart full of groceries, maybe a new coffee maker, and you really just want to get out the door.
Right, you're just ready to go home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you scan an item. Beep. It's such a simple, comforting sound, right? It
Yeah.
implies this absolute certainty.
Oh, like, totally. It feels so final.
Yeah. You scan the barcode, the system knows what the item is, it knows the exact price, and you pay. It feels like the single unified action. But what happens when we try to make that simple transaction, smart?
Yeah, it is the million-dollar question right there.
Right. What happens when you replace that basic scanner with a highly advanced conversational AI that you can actually talk to?
Well, you quickly discover that the comforting beep is, it's kind of an illusion.
An illusion.
Yeah. I mean, we as consumers just see the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
We see that final polished transaction. We don't see the chaotic machinery grinding away beneath the surface.
Oh, wow.
And when you drop a cutting-edge artificial intelligence into that old machinery, the illusion just shatters.
And that shattering is exactly what we are exploring today on this deep dive. We are pulling from an incredibly insightful March 2026 article by Shush S. from Microsoft.
It's such a great piece.
It really is. It's titled The Missing Layer in Retail's AI Stack: Why Data Trust is Becoming Foundational.
Okay, let's unpack this. We all see the hype around AI every single day, right?
Oh, constantly. It's everywhere.
But this source takes us down into, like, the basement of retail data,
Yeah.
where the real battle is actually happening.
Yeah.
And the catalyst for this whole conversation is a specific headline mentioned in the article.
Ah, yes. The Walmart news.
Right. Walmart recently stepped back from some of its early experiments with ChatGPT-driven checkout.
Which was a move that genuinely caught a lot of people in the tech and retail sectors completely by surprise.
Totally. I mean, everyone assumes that if anyone can make AI work at scale, it's a retail titan like Walmart.
Exactly. They have endless resources. So the industry chatter immediately blamed things like integration complexity or orchestration challenges, basically just throwing around buzzwords to say the tech was too clunky to link together.
Right, just corporate speak for it's hard.
Yeah.
But the source argues the real issue is actually much deeper. It's about a foundational clash between how AI thinks and how retail systems are fundamentally built.
Wait, how so? What is the actual clash?
Well, to really understand this, picture a sprawling, neon-lit digital map of a global supply chain.
Okay, I'm picturing it like a giant command center.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You have data nodes pulsing across continents, you've got massive distribution centers, and thousands of local stores.
Mm-hmm.
For decades, the data moving across this map has been operating on a delay.
A delay? Like how much of a delay?
Sometimes hours, sometimes days.
Yeah.
Legacy retail systems rely heavily on what we call batch processing. So the store's inventory or pricing database might only sync with the central server once a day.
Overnight, right?
Right, usually when the store is closed. It wasn't built for a constant millisecond by millisecond exchange of information.
Because historically, I guess, it didn't really need to be. If an inventory number was off by a few hours, a human employee could just go check the back room,
Precisely. But now, you introduce a large language model. You bring in a conversational AI.
Which expects everything instantly.
Exactly. These systems operate in real time. They demand instantaneous API calls. They expect the data they access to represent the absolute truth at that exact millisecond.
So you have this incredibly advanced high-speed intelligence just slamming headfirst into legacy infrastructure that was designed to update while everyone was sleeping.
That is exactly it. And moving from that Walmart headline to the actual mechanics of why conversational AI breaks down at checkout is where the story gets pretty wild.
It really does. Because the article points out something that kind of blew my mind. A retail checkout isn't actually one system.
No, not at all.
When you are standing there ready to pay, you are interacting with like a dozen different siloed databases all simultaneously.
It's a massive convergence point. You have a pricing engine, which dictates the base cost of your coffee maker.
Oh.
Then you have promotion logic, figuring out if a weekend coupon applies. You have inventory availability systems, fulfillment trackers, and payment gateways.
That's a lot of moving parts.
It is. And crucially, because of that batch processing delay we just talked about, each of these systems produces its own independent version of reality.
Okay, that makes me think of an orchestra.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, imagine you have this giant symphony orchestra, but the string section, the brass, and the percussion are all playing from slightly different outdated versions of the sheet music.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. And in a traditional checkout environment, the dissonance is sort of muffled. Like, if a price is wrong, maybe the cashier manually overrides it, or it shows up hours later as a customer complaint or a refund.
Right, the orchestra's playing out of tune, but they're playing slowly enough that the conductor can kind of, wave it off and fix it on the fly.
Exactly. But conversational AI, that forces the orchestra to play at a blistering tempo in real time, completely exposed to the audience.
Yeah.
Suddenly, every single wrong note is instantly agonizing and obvious to everyone.
What's fascinating here is how that analogy exposes the limitations of the AI itself.
Yeah.
The AI is your new superstar conductor.
Right.
It can perfectly interpret what the customer is asking. The natural language processing is flawless. But if the underlying sheet music that is data from the brass section or the string section is misaligned,
The AI is going to mess up.
yeah, the AI confidently, elegantly delivers the completely wrong result. And AI is ultimately only as smart and only as accurate as the foundational data it is acting upon.
Okay, I have to push back hard here, though, because we are talking about retail giants.
Sure.
Walmart's revenue is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Target, Amazon, you name it. Are you telling me they can't afford to just, I don't know, buy a better database?
It seems like they should be able to, right?
Yeah, why not just sync everything up? Surely they aren't just flying blind.
Oh, they definitely are flying blind. They have phenomenal reporting. But buying a better database drastically understates the scope of the problem.
Okay, what?
Retailers are dealing with decades of technical debt. Ripping out a legacy pricing engine and replacing it with a real-time system is like trying to replace the plumbing in a 100-story skyscraper.
While people are still in it.
Exactly. While thousands of people are still living and working inside it, you can't just turn the water off.
Wow. Okay, that puts it in perspective.
So instead of replacing the plumbing, they've built elaborate workarounds over the years. They do periodic audits. They run daily reconciliation reports.
So they look backward to see what went wrong yesterday.
Precisely. But the AI needs to know what is happening right now.
Right. The AI doesn't care about yesterday's report.
That is the critical distinction. They lack a continuous view of data consistency across these systems.
Because they're used to that 24-hour delay being acceptable.
Exactly. In the past, a delay in inventory syncing was an acceptable cost of doing business. But today, when an AI is trying to finalize a transaction in 2 seconds, the tolerance for those discrepancies is rapidly narrowing to zero.
Okay, let's actually look at what these discrepancies, these wrong notes in our orchestra sound like in everyday operations.
Let's do it.
Because the source breaks down how a single flaw triggers this massive domino effect that just destroys the retail experience. And it almost always starts with pricing.
It really does. Consider a weekend promotional cycle. A retailer decides to drop the price of a television by 20% across hundreds of stores.
Pretty standard stuff.
Right. That price configuration is entered at headquarters and pushed out across the network. But because of those legacy silos, maybe some stores experience a delayed update.
Or a specific database server glitches and doesn't catch the chain.
Exactly. So a customer walks in, sees a giant physical sign for the promo, goes to the checkout, and hits a mismatched price.
The system says it's full price, but the sign says it's 20% off.
Yeah. And suddenly you have a line backing up while a manager has to hustle over, verify the sign, and do a manual override at the register.
It's super frustrating, but it's kind of isolated, right? Like one annoyed customer.
It seems isolated until you realize how that pricing error triggers the next domino, which is inventory.
Oh.
Let's say the error went the other way. The online system drastically underprices an item by mistake. Customers notice, and suddenly you have a massive run on that item. The digital storefront is processing orders at lightning speed.
Oh, I see where this is going. Because the inventory system only syncs every few hours.
The digital store thinks there's plenty of stock left.
Ah. So it just keeps selling items that don't exist.
Exactly. And that leads to the physical versus digital drift. Today's omnichannel retail relies entirely on shared inventory.
Meaning I can buy it on my phone and pick it up at the store down the street.
Right, so you look on the app, it says a specific pair of shoes is available locally, so you buy them for in-store pickup. But the physical store was actually emptied out hours ago during that run on the item.
So the online system's reality and the physical store's reality have completely diverged. You know, the source actually highlights a really brilliant method for catching this specific inventory drift. It mentions using machine learning for anomaly detection.
Yes. I love this part of the article.
Instead of just waiting for an angry customer to show up at the store looking for an empty box, the system looks for the shatter of the error. It looks for operational drift.
It's a fascinating approach. How would you describe it?
Well, if a store system is consistently reporting that an item is highly available on the shelf, but there is absolutely no sales activity and no replenishment activity happening for that item over several days.
That behavioral anomaly signals a problem.
Right. It signals a drift between the digital record and physical reality. The system flags it, like, hey, we say we have 50 of these, but nobody is buying them and we aren't restocking them. Something is wrong.
Exactly. You catch the drift before you disappoint the customer. It's so smart because it's analyzing behavior rather than just reading a spreadsheet.
Totally. But even if the price is right and the inventory matches, you can still hit the next domino, which is product data consistency. And I've actually experienced this one firsthand.
Oh, really? What happened?
Yeah, so I was ordering what I thought was a small countertop microwave for my apartment. I checked the dimensions on the app. Everything looked good.
Oh.
2 days later, a massive commercial-grade industrial microwave arrives on a wooden pallet.
No way.
I swear, I couldn't even get it through my front door. It was insane.
That is a perfect, albeit very painful example. What you experienced was a complete failure in product data flow.
Really? How does that even happen?
Well, a product's dimensions or descriptions might get updated in the manufacturer's central database. Maybe they change the model specs, but that update fails to cascade down into the retailer's e-commerce platform.
So the website is selling a compact microwave, but the warehouse is pulling a commercial unit based on the barcode.
Exactly. And the fallout from that is massive.
Yeah.
It leads to wrong items being shipped, incredibly expensive return logistics because, shipping a pallet back isn't cheap.
Yeah, that was a whole ordeal to return.
I bet. And it completely erodes customer trust, which naturally ripples backward into the supply chain itself, which is the final vulnerability the text dives into.
Right, because supply chain operations depend on accurate data at every single micro step. Let's take that pallet example again.
Let's do it. If a supplier inputs one incorrect value into a vendor portal, say, they mistype the weight of a pallet of those microwaves.
That single bad data point doesn't just stay in the portal.
No, it infects the entire downstream process. That wrong weight dictates which truck is assigned to carry it. It ruins the logistics planning for truck weight limits on the highway.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it messes up the shelf stocking schedules at the distribution center because the forklift operators are expecting a completely different load.
It is the ultimate domino effect.
Exactly. And for decades, retail operations teams have just heroically dealt with these falling dominoes using manual workarounds, late-night phone calls, and massive Excel spreadsheets.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because we are no longer just talking about exhausted humans dealing with spreadsheets.
No, we are entering a whole new era.
We are entering what the industry calls agentic commerce. We are talking about AI agents designed to act autonomously on behalf of users or systems.
That changes everything.
Right. They aren't just answering a customer's question in a chat box anymore. They're actively placing orders, adjusting pricing parameters, managing inventory, and executing operational decisions.
Without a human ever pressing approve it.
Exactly. So if we connect this to the big picture, when you hand the steering wheel over to autonomous agents, the speed of execution becomes breathtaking.
But that also means the speed of error becomes catastrophic.
Yeah.
Think back to our sprawling digital map of the supply chain.
Okay.
When a human store manager sees a weird pallet weight, they pause. They use common sense. They call the vendor.
Right. An agent doesn't get tired, but it also doesn't have common sense. It doesn't pause to say, a 50-pound pallet of commercial microwaves seems a little light.
Exactly. It acts instantly on the reality it is presented with. If an autonomous agent relies on divergent inventory or a mismatched pricing signal, it doesn't just make one mistake.
It makes thousands.
Yes, it makes thousands of decisions, executing flawed actions across a global network in a fraction of a second.
That is terrifying.
It is. It might autonomously reorder millions of dollars of the wrong inventory, or drastically misprice an entire category of goods across all digital channels simultaneously just because it acted on a bad data feed from a single vendor.
So the stakes have completely changed. And this is why the source argues that data trust is no longer just some back-office IT issue for the tech support team to handle.
Not at all. Data trust is the operational ceiling of AI. You cannot scale autonomous intelligence on top of a fragmented foundation.
It's like putting a Ferrari engine into a car with wooden wheels.
The engine will just tear the car apart.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the core challenge.
Yeah.
How do you fix the wheels? How is the industry actually repairing this foundational layer without shutting down the skyscraper?
Well, the source highlights a very specific approach to this problem, focusing on an innovator called ZeroError.ai.
Yes.
They were founded by CEO Maria J Marti, and they're backed by Microsoft for startups. They represent this fundamental shift in how we handle data integrity.
This is a really important shift.
But let me ask the skeptical question here. How is this not just a giant spell checker for data?
It's a fair question.
Right. Are they really just writing millions of rigid rules that say, if database A does not equal database B, send an alert? Because that sounds completely impossible to maintain in a system as chaotic as a global supply chain.
It is impossible. That is exactly the trap previous generations of software fell into.
So they tried that before.
Oh, yeah. Traditional data quality tools relied heavily on rigid, deterministic rules. But you can't manually write a rule for every possible anomaly, every vendor typo, or every delayed API call across billions of transactions.
I'd imagine it would require an army of engineers just to maintain the rules.
Exactly. It doesn't scale.
So how does Zero Error do it differently?
It leverages machine learning to explicitly avoid relying on predefined rules.
Okay.
Instead, the platform sits above the data streams and continuously observes the information flowing across the enterprise. It learns the natural rhythm of the business to establish complex patterns of normal behavior.
Oh. Kind of like the anomaly detection we talked about with the inventory drift.
Exactly like that, but applied to the entire data infrastructure. When it flags a deviation, say, a pricing update that looks structurally different than the last 1,000 pricing updates, it doesn't just throw an error code and create a ticket for IT.
What does it do?
It traces the lineage of that data.
Lineage, meaning like it figures out where the data was born and everywhere it traveled.
Yeah, it traces the DNA of the error. It shows exactly where the issue originated. Maybe a specific vendor portal entry at 2:0 a.m.
That's incredible.
And it shows how it moved across different interconnected systems and, crucially, what it is about to affect downstream before the dominoes actually fall.
So it completely shifts the conversation. We move from merely identifying errors, which just creates a giant stressful to-do list for humans, to actually understanding consequences.
Exactly. It makes data consistency visible and actionable in real time.
That makes a lot of sense, but it also raises a broader question for me.
What's that?
Why has it taken so long for a solution like this to emerge? Like, why did retailers just accept the chaos for decades?
It's a great point. The article actually connects this to a framework in the venture capital world, specifically Sequoia Capital's ARC product market fit framework.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah, they call this kind of problem hard fact.
A hard fact?
Right. The hard fact archetype is a brilliant way to understand enterprise software. Venture capitalists use this term to describe a systemic problem that an industry has begrudgingly learned to live with.
No, I see.
It's a pain point, so deep, so chronic, and seemingly so intractable that companies just stop trying to cure it. They just build massive, expensive manual workarounds to survive it.
Like hiring hundreds of people just to reconcile spreadsheets every single month?
Yes. Retailers have lived with data drift for so long they accept it as a law of nature, like gravity or bad weather.
And you don't try to fix the weather, you just buy an umbrella.
Exactly, you buy an umbrella. But Zero Error is attacking a hard fact by proving that data drift isn't the weather. It is actually a solvable engineering problem.
And that brings us to the role of Microsoft in all of this, which the author, Shish S., speaks to directly at the very end of the article.
Right, their involvement is key here.
Microsoft isn't just throwing venture capital at interesting ideas. By backing companies like Zero Error through Microsoft for Startups, they are engaging in a deliberate curation process.
Yes, they are out there looking for startups with deep technical expertise and critically enterprise scalability.
Because the mega retailers, the Walmarts and Targets of the world, simply do not have the time to spend 5 to 10 years trying to build these trust layers in-house from scratch.
No, the AI revolution is happening right now. They need plug-and-play solutions that can integrate into their massive, messy, legacy environments today.
They need to establish that foundational data trust immediately so they can safely deploy the AI agents they actually want to use.
Precisely. It's the only way forward.
So, let's take a breath and synthesize this incredible journey we've been on.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We started with a headline about Walmart hitting pause on ChatGPT checkouts. We peeled back the floorboards and discovered the messy, fragmented reality of siloed retail data.
Our orchestra playing furiously out of tune because of legacy batch processing.
Right. And we saw how unleashing autonomous AI agents on that bad data acts as a massive multiplier for errors, turning a single typo into a global supply chain crisis.
It's a scary thought.
And finally, we explored how innovators like Zero Error are stepping in, using machine learning and lineage tracing to turn data quality from a tedious, backward-looking audit into a real-time, proactive, operational infrastructure.
It is a complete paradigm shift.
Right.
We are moving from humans frantically trying to generate insights from broken data to AI automatically ensuring foundational alignment so that the business can actually function at the speed of thought.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, the next time you tap your phone to buy a coffee or order a sweater online and pick it up flawlessly at the store 20 minutes later, I want you to appreciate the sheer scale of what just happened.
It really is a modern marvel.
It is. Whenever you experience a seamless digital transaction, there is a massive, invisible war being waged in the background to keep the data reality consistent. You are witnessing the triumph of operational data integrity.
And this raises an important, perhaps slightly unsettling question to leave you with. Okay. Today, we focused on retail titans, realizing that their ultra-smart AI agents are completely paralyzed without a flawless, self-correcting foundation of trusted data.
Right.
But what does that mean for the other areas of our lives where we are rushing headlong to deploy AI?
Oh, wow.
As we eagerly invite autonomous agents to manage our personal schedules, to optimize our personal finances, or to monitor our health, are we building hyper-intelligent decision makers on top of our own fragmented, inconsistent personal data realities?
Man, if a multi-billion-dollar AI can't figure out if a television is on sale because the underlying data is messy, do I really want an autonomous agent deciding how much to invest in my retirement account based on my messy, unsynced banking apps?
It's definitely something to think about.
That is an incredible thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the invisible layers beneath the technology you use every single day, and the next time you hear that simple beep at the checkout scanner,
Remember the orchestra playing furiously behind the curtain.
exactly. We'll catch you next time.